that's wrapped around a delicious filling. I started you off with the basics, the caramel apple jalousie. So now I know we can take on the challenge of my individual Cabernet poached pear strudels with walnuts. But before we get to actually assembling the strudel, I have to poach the pears. I've got 4 Bartlett pears here that have been peeled, cut in half, and cored. And I'll start by making the poaching liquid. That way I can get it heated. And it takes a full bottle, so 3 cups of red wine. And I've opted for a Cabernet red wine. Cabernet is a deeper, richer red wine, and it really suits poaching. I'll add to this 3 cups of sugar. So it's equal parts liquid to sugar. Get that heating. I love the spice character of Cabernet wine, so I'm going to highlight that by adding a couple of cinnamon sticks to the poaching liquid and the subtle licorice flavor of star anise. 3 stars should do the trick. And then I can carefully drop in the pears. You actually have to put something over the surface of the poaching liquid to keep the pears just slightly submerged. Now what I do is just take a sheet of parchment paper, but I fold it into triangles and then tear it. That way it makes a circle. Once the poaching liquid comes to just below a simmer, it'll bubble up, hit the parchment, and then roll over the surface of the pears, so that way the pears cook evenly. The poaching time for pears does vary depending on the variety of pear and the ripeness, so I just use a fork to test. When it yields easily, then I know the pears are done. There we go. The pears yield easily when I press a fork into them. It took about 20 minutes, but that time can vary. Now, I'll set these aside to cool completely in the poaching liquid. The more time I can give those pears in that beautifully spiced red wine, the more flavor they'll take on and the more color, which is why I have a batch already chilled that actually has been in the fridge overnight. There they are. I have half a cup of lightly toasted walnut pieces, and I have my phyllo dough. So now, I'll start with 1 sheet at a time. And it's so wafer thin, you have to layer it to give it some strength and structure. When you're working with phyllo pastry, you butter each layer individually before you put on the next layer. That ensures that as it bakes in the oven, it bakes up beautifully flaky. For the individual strudels, I layer 4 sheets. And even the top layer gets a brush with butter. So I'm going to cut this into 2 portions. So each of these will be the pastry for an individual strudel. So a single dessert uses 2 pear halves. Now a sprinkling of the toasted walnut pieces on top, about 2 tablespoons per. And then to fold, I first make a tuck. And before you roll the strudel, it's important to tuck in the edges. That holds everything in place as it bakes. And then roll. You want to make sure when you put it on your baking tray, the seam side is down. And there we go. 4 individual strudels, and just like the caramel apple version I made earlier with the puff pastry, you want to brush the top of your phyllo pastry with an egg wash to promote that browning. And then for a little added crunch, I'm just going to take a couple tablespoons of sugar and mix in just a touch of ground cinnamon, about a 1/4 teaspoon. And just like the puff pastry version, phyllo likes a hot oven. This time 375, and it only takes 20 minutes. Remember, those pears are cooked, so we're just trying to toast up the lovely flaky layers of the phyllo pastry. Oh, beautiful. And while these are baking, you can smell the spices, the star anise and the cinnamon in there. I'm gonna let this cool for just a minute. I might as well make use of this beautiful poaching liquid. I'm going to reduce it down into a glaze, so that becomes a sauce to serve with the strudel. I'll just reduce down a single portion. And I'll let this cook down over high heat until it becomes thick, just like syrup. Let's take a peek at one of these strudel. To serve an individual portion of strudel like this, you want to slice into it. I'll cut it on a bias to reveal that beautiful poached pear and the walnut pieces. I'll just prop this on the other slice. Oh, you can just see all the flakiness, these beautiful crumbs. You can tell when your glaze is almost done because the bubbles get bigger and thicker. And look at the intensity of the color. Complements the strudel beautifully. So we've done a basic caramel apple strudel with the puff pastry. Now a plated dessert using phyllo dough with the poached pears. So I know you're ready for the next advanced application, the classic original Austrian cherry strudel.